morning, all of you. Hi, I hope you're fine today. And what I have taught us today, you could understand, and you must have gone through, I believe. But in there, I hear someone, okay, I just went through. No, you should go through all what I've taught. Then I had few queries from some of you. Ma'am, should we have this book, that book? What I've said is, we need a bio notebook as such, one notebook, biology notebook. Second, we need an assignment notebook. These are the two important notebooks what is needed for bio. Some have said, what are we going to do about the online sessions, whether we have to have a separate book or can we have it? No, please don't have it together for bio. Bio, two notebooks, one the notebook as such and one the assignment notebook. For online sessions, what I suggest is you can have a common notebook where you can note down all the important points of each subject, and accordingly you can learn, because we teachers will be giving you notes. So for that you have to complete every day whenever the teacher gives. Assignment notebook, whenever we give assignments, I'm happy to know that many of them came to my personal window and they did post what they did, the assignment. That's good job to the ones who have did yesterday itself. The notes will be given after we complete it today, but with what I'm teaching, you don't have to worry about that. So 2 notebooks and a common notebook for the online session you can have. So let's go. And one more thing. If a teacher asks you questions and you have been called by names, my God, please don't leave the session. We can see who's leaving the session just because the teacher kept on asking questions. Why are you worried? We are not going to eat you up. We are not there with you. We are right here and you're right at your home, so you're safe. If you were right in front of us, yes, we normally don't eat. But please don't leave the session. You should not leave the session. You should be there. It's not, if you don't know the answer, just say, no, teacher, I don't know. That's all. But don't leave the session. Being in a live session makes a lot of difference. Yes, the recorded version is there, but being with me and you being with me, it makes a lot of difference for me. Okay? So don't leave the session. In case if any teacher asks you queries, be there and be with us. So now we are going to continue for what I taught us today. Just a recap. I did teach about the scientist, the years I mentioned, you have to know all that. Then the differences between unicellular and multicellular organisms, I gave above that, which you already know. Then I've mentioned a lot of characteristics, a few characteristics of cells. I hope if you have gone through all that what I've taught, it will be easy. If you keep it for the last, it becomes difficult. Now, we'll move on. Here, what I've given is, I've just mentioned yesterday about this, now the structural organization of a cell. Someone said, yes ma'am, I know. Plasma membrane, nucleus, cytoplasm. Plasma membrane will be the main, what we're going to go through first. Plasma membrane, as you know, it is the outer covering of a cell, which is there in the plant and which is there in the animal, common to both. Please don't raise your hands. Crystal. Unnecessary, please don't raise your hands. I will ask you and then you can do it. Then you have the nucleus, which is found in the center of a cell. We have the cytoplasm, the jelly-like substance which is in the cell. So we are going, for detailed about plasma membrane, but nucleus and cytoplasm. Here you can see, we're going to start with plasma membrane, or another name called, somebody said, cell membrane. Yes, exactly. It's cell membrane. You can see I've given an image. This is not new for you. You very well know it. This is the outermost covering of the cell, which separates what? The contents of the cell and from its external environment. You have to know that this is the outermost covering of the cell, which separates the contents of the cell from its external environment. Now it has its function, plasma membrane. It allows or permits the entry and exit of some materials in and out of the cell. Okay, like when you go in a mall, before you enter a mall, who's there? There will be a security guard standing there. He will decide whether you have to enter inside the mall, or you have to go inside the shop, or whether you have to just be there. Okay, in that way, just the in and out, the entry, in and out, they decide. So here, it allows the exit and entry of in and out of the cell, materials in and out of the cell. Important points you can note down. There's no harm in noting down important points. You don't even have to ask me, you can note it down. That is why I have made it like this, so that for you it is easier to learn. It's chapter, you have to learn it like this. Then only it will be easier for you to learn. So plasma membrane, or what is called cell membrane, is the outermost covering of a cell which separates the contents of the cell from the external environment. The function, it allows or permits the exit and entry of some materials in and out of cell. Here also, as I said, all the materials are not allowed in and out. They decide whom to get in and whom to get out. Let's move on. Another thing, plasma membrane also prevents movement of some other materials. Therefore, it is called selectively permeable membrane. It allows, it's selective, it selects whom to get in, whom to get out. That is said, I gave an example like when you go in the mall, security guard is there. He allows whether you should get in or get out. He is the person stops. He is the one who stops us. In the same way, plasma membrane decides. It decides the movement of materials from, it has to allow or to exit, whether to get in or to move you out. So that is why the cell membrane is called selectively permeable membrane. Plasma membrane also prevents movement of some other materials. Therefore, the cell membrane is called selectively permeable membrane. It selectively allows entry or exit. Here in plasma membrane, there is a movement of materials we have mentioned. So movement of carbon dioxide or oxygen across the membrane takes place. The movement of carbon dioxide or oxygen takes place across the cell membrane. The movement of carbon dioxide or oxygen across the cell membrane is a process happens there, is by a process called diffusion. Again, the movement of carbon dioxide or oxygen across the cell membrane is by a process called diffusion. You can note down this. There's a process called diffusion. We'll move on. Now, what is diffusion? What is diffusion? It's a definition, right? So you can note it down. The spontaneous movement of a substance from a region of higher concentration to a region where the concentration is low. So the movement, the spontaneous, the fast movement of materials or substances from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration. It's known as diffusion. Now, where does it has a role in it. Diffusion, this process plays a great role, an important role where? I mentioned carbon dioxide and oxygen earlier. It plays an important role in gaseous exchange between the cell, that is inside the cell, as well as the cell and the external environment. This is important. Where does it play a role? Diffusion plays an important role in the gaseous exchange between the cells, among the cells, as well as a single cell and the external environment. Diffusion, this process plays an important role. Again, I'm saying diffusion, defined diffusion can be asked. It's important. You should know what is diffusion. The spontaneous movement of a substance from a region of high concentration to a region where the concentration is low is known as diffusion. This is one process. You can see I've just given an animated image. Diffusion. From high concentration to the low concentration it moves. Carbon dioxide and oxygen moves in and out through diffusion, through the process of diffusion. From high concentration to region of low concentration. Now here it has to get out material. So I've given an example. Carbon dioxide. It's a cellular waste and has to be cleared out of the cell. So carbon dioxide is a cellular waste and it has to be cleared out of the cell. I'll just go through this. In the cell's environment, the concentration of carbon dioxide is low. Around the cell, the concentration of the carbon dioxide is low. So what happens? The carbon dioxide which is more inside the cell has to come out. And this happens through the process of diffusion. The concentration of carbon dioxide around the cell is low, but inside the cell it's more. So this has to be cleared out. The carbon dioxide base has to be cleared out, so through a process called diffusion. I'll just read it out for you. In the cell's environment, the concentration of carbon dioxide is low as compared to the inside the cell. So carbon dioxide moves out of the cell from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration outside the cell by a process of diffusion. Nothing to get confused. The environment, the carbon dioxide which is out of the cell, that is low, the concentration low, but the concentration inside the cell is high. So obviously that has to be taken off or cleared out. So that happens only by a process called diffusion. I hope you understood this. That is why I'm saying you have to go through this as and when I complete the chapter, learn it, read the text, underline the important points, then it will be easier for you. Don't keep it for the last minute. Here again, similarly, I showed carbon dioxide. Now see, again, I've given an animated image saying about oxygen. Oxygen moves in and out of the cell through a process of diffusion. Here, now water also obeys the laws of diffusion in the cell. Water also plays a great role for this process diffusion, the process diffusion. Now we are going to learn another process. I'm sure you have already read by now. All of you must have read. Okay, no problem. Why I said water also obeys? Because that has a role in this. Water plays a great role in such processes. The movement of water molecules through such a selectively permeable membrane is called osmosis. Okay, earlier we learned about gases, the gaseous exchange. Now water also has a great important role in it, but through a process called osmosis. The movement of water molecules through such a selectively permeable membrane. Who's that? Yes, I heard somebody saying plasma membrane. So such a selectively permeable membrane is called osmosis. Please note down such definitions, whatever I'm given, so that you learn, it will be easier for you to recollect when we are done with the chapter. Let's move on. Now what is osmosis? Again, osmosis, this is important. You can see an image also I've given there. Osmosis is the passage of water from a region of high water concentration through a selectively permeable membrane to a region of low concentration till equilibrium is reached, till the balance is reached. Equilibrium till the balance is reached. So you have to know the definition have been clearly given. Osmosis is the passage of water from a region of high concentration, that is high water concentration, through a selectively permeable, you have to write this, through a selectively permeable membrane. The other diffusion didn't have this. Here they have through a selectively permeable membrane, and here water. Remember, to a region of low water concentration till equilibrium is reached. This is the definition for osmosis. Diffusion I've given, okay, that process, and I've given about osmosis. Now, we have learnt about plant cell, we learned about, and just you have a picture about what it is. Now, when a plant cell or animal cell is dropped in solution, there we'll be learning about 3 types of solutions. Okay? When a plant cell or animal cell is dipped in such solutions, what happens to them? So we have to know what are the type of solutions when we put them in such solutions. Here, the first solution, hypertonic solution. You can write it down. This portion, whatever I'm saying, everything is important. Common questions, they're very common questions. They will ask about osmosis, diffusion, about the solutions. Now what I'm saying, the functions what at the end you can see the plasma membrane functions I've given, all that will be asked. This portion what I'm teaching is very important. Here, you can see in the image, if the water concentration, if there's too much of water around the cell, okay? If there's too much of water around the cell, if the medium surrounding the cell has higher water concentration than the cell will gain water by osmosis. It will start swelling. It swells. The cell will swell because too much of water is outside. So less content of water is inside. So when too much of water is outside the cell, what happens? Naturally, it gains the water through the process by osmosis and the cell swells. Swells, S-W-E-L-L-S. It swells. Means it grows, it becomes bigger. It swells. And such a solution is known as hypertonic solution. Again, I'll repeat. If the medium surrounding the cell has a higher water concentration than the cell, so if the water concentration is more outside the cell, obviously what the cell will do? It will gain water. It will start becoming bigger, or it will swell. So such a solution is known as hypertonic solution. It's very important. You should know there are 3 types of solutions, but I'm going forward, you will know. So this I hope you understood. I've given an image for and I've marked so that you find it easy to understand what does it mean. The water concentration outside the cell is more. Obviously, the cell will gain water and the cell will start swelling. It will swell. And this such a solution is known as hypertonic solution. Now we have what is known as isotonic solution. What is isotonic solution? The concentration of water inside the cell and outside the cell is same. They are fine. Okay? Such solution have no problem. They are fine. The outside and the inside, the same quantity of water is there. So if the medium surrounding the cell has exactly the same water concentration as the cell, there will be no net movement of water across the membrane. So no activity happens. It is just like that. Nothing inside, outside. It will remain just like that. So such a solution is known as isotonic solution. You can write down this. Again, I'm saying this is important. These solutions are important. Here I've given, just for you to know, the quantity of water inside the cell and outside the cell. It is just the same. So no net molecules. The movement does not, no net movement is there. So such a solution is known as isotonic solution. Now we have the third solution. That is hypertonic solution. In this, if the cell has too much of water than the cells in the environment, around the environment, it has too much of water inside, what happens? The cell will shrink. If the medium surrounding the cell has lower concentration water, that means outside medium is low, but inside the water is more, it will start losing water and the cell will shrink. So such a solution is known as hypertonic solution. I hope you understood what I said. I tried to make it easier for you by giving a picture and you'll understand. Here again I'm saying, if the water concentration is high inside the cell, obviously it will lose water and the cell will shrink. So such a solution is known as hypertonic solution. If the medium surrounding the cell has a lower concentration of water, outside environment is low, but inside is high, what happens? The cell will lose water by the process osmosis and the cell will shrink. Such a solution is known as hypertonic solution. Here I have given, you can note this down, this is important. Give the differences between hypertonic, isotonic and hypertonic solution. Hypo, iso and hyper. I have given it so that it will be easier for you to understand and learn. Hypertonic solution. Medium outside the cell is high in water concentration. The other one, medium outside the cell, has exactly the same water concentration. Hyper, medium outside the cell is low in water concentration. They are talking about the medium outside. Here, what happens in hypo? What I said? Yeah, somebody said. Somebody told, yes, they told the answer. More water will get into the cell. Here in hypertonic, they will gain water. So what will happen? The cell will swell up. Here in isotonic, what happens? Yes, the amount going is the same. So there's no net movement of molecules. The cell will remain, the size will remain just like that. And the other one, more water will go outside, the cell will shrink. You have to understand this. You should know this. You should learn this. It is important. All these solutions, hypertonic, isotonic and hypertonic solution. Now we have just some points to tell about what are the main important features of plasma membrane. We'll go to that. We have done with the solutions. Here the plasma membrane, or what is called as cell membrane, is highly flexible. Are you all with me? Yes or no? Yes, I heard somebody saying yes. Good. I thought you're not there with me. Okay, good. We continue. The plasma membrane is highly flexible and is made up of organic molecules called lipids and proteins. Okay? The plasma membrane is highly flexible, you should know that, and is made up of organic molecules called lipids and protein. These are features. When we ask you to write about features of plasma membrane, you should know this. Now, because it is highly flexible, in microorganism like unicellular microorganism like amoeba, the flexibility, because it is flexible, the cell, this I'm talking in case of amoeba, the flexibility also enables the cell to move in and out the materials. This is known as endocytosis. Just 1 minute. Okay, back. The flexibility, plasma membrane is highly flexible. So what is it? That is the main feature in it. And because of this flexibility, it enables the cell to engulf the food and other materials from outside. This process is known as endocytosis. This happens in whom? Yes, our dear amoeba. Okay, amoeba eats its food through this process. That is endocytosis. You have to know this also. These are a few features of plasma membrane. Because of its flexibility, amoeba is able to get the food or engulf the food in and out through a process called endocytosis. Amoeba eats its food through this process. I hope you all are with me and you're concentrating on what I'm saying. I'm happy that nobody is doing anything or disturbing the class. Good children. As I told you, when you finish with the plasma membrane, a few points I'll be giving you. Here, you can note this down. Anyway, the recorded version is there in the YouTube. It's always uploaded. But if you want, you can note this down and know as when we have done with the class, you can just go through it. And please read the text. Don't leave the text. Read and underline the important points. First one. Plasma membrane is also known as cell membrane. Yeah, somebody said, yes ma'am, we know it. Good. Next, it separates the cell contents from the outside. As I said, it controls, allows in and out of the materials. It will select whom it should get in and who should get out. So it separates the cells from the outside membrane. It separates the cell from the outside environment, it permits movement of selected materials to and from the cell. So it is selectively permeable membrane through processes like diffusion and osmosis. Then the next point is it's highly flexible. Highly flexible, that's an example I gave with amoeba. Now, it is made up of organic molecules called lipids and proteins. Then, because of its flexibility, it helps organisms like amoeba to get its or engulf its food through a process called endocytosis. These are the features. In your book, so many things have been given, but to make your work easy and for you to understand, I have given in points. Always learn in points, children, then it will be easier. Don't learn paragraphs. Write down the points and that will make your work easier and you can learn easily. Now I said there is something called cell wall. Cell wall is also very common, right? Where is it found? Where is the cell wall found? Is it in animal cell? Or in the plant cell? Where is it? Yes, I heard someone saying it's found only in the plant cell. So in plants, we can just go through it. In plants, fungi and bacteria, just like that. In addition to the plasma membrane, there is an additional rigid outer covering. In spite, just not only they have plasma membrane, they have an outer rigid covering that is called cell wall. We know this, but we have to go through this again. We cannot just leave it. This portion is there. Cell wall as such is there. You have to go through this. We know we have learned this earlier, but we have to know what it is and to be specific. Cell wall is seen outside the plasma membrane. There's an image given there. Cell wall is seen outside the plasma membrane and is composed of cellulose. Cellulose. We have learned this in our lower classes, right? So cell wall is seen outside the plasma membrane and is composed of cellulose. You have to know this. You know what is cell wall? It is a rigid outer covering outside the plasma membrane, that is cell wall, and it is composed what is called of cellulose. Now what is cellulose? We know what is cellulose, but we have to write in a proper. We can't just give whatever we want and give the definition. Cellulose is a complex substance and provides structural strength to the plants. Why do we need this actually? We all know that plants are stationary. They cannot move, but we can move. So they need strength because it is stationary and it has to undergo a lot of harsh conditions. Okay, to withstand all those conditions, it has this substance, complex substance in this cell wall. So to get great strength for the plants, cellulose is needed on the cell wall. What happens if a plant cell loses water? Okay, I know, thanks. Let's get back. Please concentrate on what I'm saying. If a plant cell loses water through osmosis, we have studied that it will gain water. The plant cell can gain water, cell can lose water. So here I want to mention a process, that is why I've given an example. If a plant cell loses water through the process of osmosis, what will happen? The cell will shrink. And what happens? The contents of the cell will contract, it will move away from the cell wall. This phenomena is known as plasmolysis. Again, I'm saying such definitions are important. You have to note it down. If a plant cell loses water through the process called osmosis, obviously when a plant cell loses water through the process called osmosis, the cell will shrink. Not only that, the contents of the cell will contract away from the cell wall. It will contract away, it will move away. And this phenomena is known as plasmolysis. You can write it down, you can note it down. So I hope you have understood. Kelvin of 9B, I don't want you to annotate. Stop annotating. I very well told you that we can see you and we can know that who's doing what while teaching. Please don't do it. Please concentrate on what I'm saying. So here I mentioned about cellulose, then I mentioned about the definition called plasmolysis. Hope you have understood. This thing, I know cellulose you know. This is new for you, plasmolysis. We'll move on. Cell wall, we have been learning for what it is. It is mainly, it's a protection key function of the cell wall. The cell wall protects the plant cell in adverse conditions. Okay? The cell wall is needed. Inside the cell wall, we have a complex substances. That is cellulose. So the cell wall protects the plant cell in adverse conditions. This is important. The cell wall protects the plant cell in adverse conditions. These are certain features, what I'm saying. So you have to know that everything is given, but it's better to understand and learn. Here again, cell wall also permits the cells of plants, bacteria to withstand very dilute media without bursting. So because of the strength of cell wall, even if they gain water, the cell wall is there to protect what? The cells of plants like fungi and bacteria. This cell wall protects them. Even if it gains water, this cell wall will stay and protect. It will maintain the balance. That's what. In such media, what happens? The cell tends to take up water by osmosis here and the cell swells. I've mentioned. The earlier one I mentioned, in a plant cell, the cell will lose water and the cell will lose water and will shrink. Here, what I am going to tell you about, the cell tends to gain water and the cell will swell. What happens? It will build pressure inside and outside. So who is there to protect? The cell wall is there. The cell swells, building up pressure against the cell wall. So the cell wall exerts equal pressure against the swollen cell. So when the cell gains water, there is a cell wall that maintains a pressure against the cell and the cell wall. And so many things are there which is new, totally new to you. That is why I'm repeatedly telling you today, please go through the portion. Those who have not gone yesterday also, go through that from the first till what I'm teaching you. I'm stopping now. Daily portions, if you do, you will understand. If you don't do your daily portions, it will be very difficult to understand the different types of solutions, how the cell gains water, and what happens when the cell loses water, what happens. You have to know that. If you only know, if you read and learn, only then you'll know what is happening to a cell. Let's move. Because of the walls, such cells can withstand much greater changes in the surrounding media than the animal cell. So plant cell have more advantage than animal cell because of the cell wall. For plant cell, because the cell wall, it has greater advantages. It can balance, it can withstand such pressure than animal cell. Now this is about nucleus. So we have learned about so many things about, we have told you about features of plasma membrane. I've talked to you about cell wall. You have to read through. I hope you have noted down whatever I said, especially the hypertonic and isotonic solution. You have to know this. Please write it down, note it down. Okay. Today itself, go through all this. It is important that you know this. These features of plasma membrane, the three solutions what I said, diffusion, osmosis, plasmolysis. Those are the common definitions. They'll be asked. If a cell is put up in hypertonic solution, what will happen? If a cell is put up in a hypertonic, what happens? If a cell is put up in isotonic solution, what happens? Okay? You have to learn all this and note it. Please note this down. I hope you have noted this down. Okay. I'll give you an activity today. Please write it down. Yesterday's activity, I hope most all of you have done. If not, please do it. You can write the activity. If a cell is kept in hypertonic solution, more. If a cell is kept in hypertonic solution, what happens? If a cell is kept in hypertonic solution, what happens? And if a cell is kept in isotonic solution, what happens? That is your activity. Anamika, can you hear me? Anamika, did you hear the activity what I have given? Okay, that's nice. So all of you, please do this activity. Read through the text. Notes will be given soon. Do the activity and keep. I will check it out. You have to complete all this and I will ask you a few questions next class. Okay, till then, stay safe. God bless, and we'll meet in the next class.